KWT slaying.
Well, family, the wait is over. The moment has arrived where truth emerges triumphant from the shadows of history. Introducing the true Jerusalem, the lost kingdoms of the Israelites, the groundbreaking work by me, Yacobe Vale, a journey into the past that reshapes the future. I cut through centuries of misconceptions with piercing clarity. This book delivers a compelling case packed with evidence that commands attention and gonna get some respect. Come with me for a second, family, and discover how these thrilling civilizations flourished, protected by towering highlands and sustained by advanced engineering. Some have asked, where is Jerusalem? Is it the land in the Middle East? I say no. It is in the highlands of Ethiopia. With hours of groundbreaking research, this book brings in a new revelation, and it will transform your understanding of African history and its connections to the ancient world. It's going to remove from your mind the conditioning by the Romans of what has really happened to our past. Come with me, family, to the Ethiopian highlands and find out why this is our land. Why things have been hidden and obfuscated for centuries. We are royalty, children of the Most High. What kind of land do you expect us to have? Dried up dirt in the Middle East, or land flowing with rivers? A land full of beautiful animals flowing with milk and honey. Don't miss out on this monumental unveiling. Grab your copy today and stand on the side of truth. Visit Amazon.com or www.tailministries.com to purchase your book and join Yacobe Vale's teachings on Tail Ministries. Family, your journey to a hidden history has now begun. So family, get your copy of True Jerusalem, the Lost Kingdoms of the Israelites today. Journey to the heart of Africa, where history and legend converge to reveal the forgotten kingdoms of the Israelites and the true location of Jerusalem. Salama, family. Salama, how y'all doing today? Hope you're blessed and highly favored. So I guess y'all wondering, why in the heck is Yacoba on this late at night, right? Come on now, give me a one if that's what you're thinking. Well, the reason that I'm on this late because my sleep has been messed up. My sleep has been messed up, and I can't get nothing in sync. I'm serious. My days are messed up. And then I got this headache that don't want to go away. And, using Flonase, that helps a little bit. I'm like, oh my goodness. It's just hard for me to get anything done. Right. So I'm like, you got to fit it in where you can. And I got a lot of stuff I got to do. I got stuff I want to cover, prophetically. I have stuff I want to cover about the Passover, just a different view of it. Eat the meat, spit out the bones type stuff. Even today, eat the meat, spit out the bones. Believe what you want. You ain't got to convince me. I find it interesting. So I had this Gentile come on Minister Teu's post, for his book. They always knew we were the Israelite. And she said, I thought Edinburgh was the true Jerusalem. I'm like, Edinburgh? What the heck is that? I said, I don't know where you got that from. And then she said, I thought it was the Canaanites who were black. The Israelites are the Scottish and the Irish. Can you believe it? I'm like, oh, I'm like, to be honest with you, even if it wasn't for the awakening, I don't see how anybody could believe that. They were the Scottish and the Irish. Okay, all right, gotcha. But hey, we got people who believe in Mormonism. I mean, who claim to be Israelites. So I mean, hey, what the heck, right? I'm like, you know, I just thought it was funny, right? I'm not trying to hit at the person. I just thought it was funny, right? So, oh yeah, I saw the Nazi flag, Minister tell you. Oh yeah, I forgot to tell y'all. So she had a Nazi flag on her YouTube profile with a astronaut, right? That says a lot. That says a lot. But anyway, I'm like, okay, you sure you want to come over here? I don't think so. So anyway, we're going to talk about some stuff. We're going to revisit some things because I think it's important. You might not think it's important, but at least for me, I can now visualize biblical events, right? I can see where they more than likely occurred, right? And there's just so many things. So before we get started, I want to recommend that I want to recommend that you get my book, because if you haven't, you're going to be missing out, because that adds a lot of meat to what I'm covering today. Also, Mr. Teyu's book also adds meat too, by finding out who we are, where we were, and all this stuff, right? And what they said about us. So, but here's our 2 articles you should read. I wrote these, The Hidden Ark and the Hidden People, if you haven't read it. From the Land of Promise to the Land of the Hebrews. Now, we're going to revisit some of this. I'm not going to read from this article, but I recommend you read it if you want to understand my viewpoint. Personally, oh yeah, I'm taking Claritin. I'm doing Flonase. I took some elderberry. I don't know. They spraying me with something. I don't believe this is pollen, right? But anyway, I mean, everybody not feeling well. My wife, she usually don't get sick, and she not feeling that great either. So, but anyway, I recommend that you read this, right? Both of these, but definitely this one if you want to understand what's happening today, and what's going to happen in terms of the land and where we're going to be. So we're going to get into that. So I'm gonna put the link there if you want to go to Terrell Ministries and read the article. I recommend you do, right? That's if you want to. Oh, thank you, Sean. I didn't see that. All right, so let's get started. So we're gonna revisit this book, just parts of it, not all of it. Let me scroll over here. All right. Because this particular now remember, all of my teachings add to one another, right? All of the previous teachings add to one another. The book adds to the previous teachings and even to this one. So you have to, build up your piece. Oh yeah, I got mullein too. Don't get it twisted. I'm not an amateur here. I got my mullein tea. I got all of it. I got my spearmint tea. I got my green tea. Oh yeah. I look. I got my NAC if I gotta take that. But anyway, I digress. Right. All right. So one thing, you all know about the letter of Aristeas. I talk about that in other videos. I talk about that in my book, and I talk about that in that article. But what we're going to talk about right now is, once again, I brought this up, the geographical description of the 4 parts of the world, 1670 by Richard Blome, right? And we talked about this, and, I'm not going to go and read everything, but, Richard Blome says that the Jews were black, right? I mean, he says this, right? All right. So, but that's not the part I want to cover. I want to cover a part that I talked about before. which is talking about Jerusalem, right? It says, I hope y'all can see that. Let me see. All right, it says Jerusalem is so well known in the Holy Scriptures that we must confess it has been not only one of the greatest, but one of the fairest cities in the world, being called the city of the Lord. Now, I talked about the different names of the promised land, right? Go read the article from the promised land to the land of the Hebrews to the land of the Jews. And, according to this book of why that's the case, right? So the city of the Lord, its kings, its high priests, and its temple and the royal palaces have made it famous even amongst the remotest people. So Jerusalem was famous. You can't really hide it. And that's what I've always said. If Jerusalem was so big, so famous, so magnificent, right? You cannot really truly hide it. You can only mess with people's perception, right? You can misinterpret and misidentify and rename things. But all of the culture and the traditions and the history and the artifacts and all that stuff, which I cover in my book, you can't hide, right? So, but all of this comes together, right? So its circuit was once 50 furlongs, which are only 6,250 geometrical paces, which is something above 2 leagues, but so well built that it was capable of the receiving of 150,000 families. So that's how big it was, right? So you can't say that place in the Middle East is it. I'm sorry, it just don't work, right? Even from the scriptures, it just don't work. Its temple and palaces, especially those of Solomon, were the fairest, the greatest, and the most magnificent which ever I beheld. So it ain't no small little place like in Yeha, right? You can't say that's the temple. It's not, okay? Its gates, its walls, its towers, its ditches cut out of the rock. Now, this is the part that I'm interested in right here, right? Okay. I'm going to repeat this. Its gates, its walls, its towers, its ditches cut out of the rock. And it's, what's that? Situation of whatever that is. Situation, I think it is, in the mountains, or its position in the mountains. So it's in the mountains. What? The gates, the walls, the towers, the ditches that make up Solomon Temple, right? The Temple Mount area, cut out of the rock. And the situation in the mountains made it seem what? Impregnable. All of that aligns with what I've been teaching. All of that aligns with the letter of Aretius, right? It's like, you can't tell me that Jerusalem is in South Africa. You can't tell me Jerusalem is over there in, the Congo. You can't tell me that Jerusalem is in Kenya. You can't tell me none of that, right? Because it don't fit, right? So, and this is why people say, well, I feel this, or I feel that, oh, Jerusalem is in Namibia. Namibia, really? I mean, you could believe what you want, but I'm just saying from a biblical scholarly viewpoint, it don't fit, right? It don't fit. And a lot of people, what they do is they come with the idea that it's desolate. Oh, how many times have Minister tell you and I had to deal with, but it's desolate. Oh my goodness. We didn't cover that 100 times and it's frustrating, right? But anyway, so I'm coming from the viewpoint that it's cut out of the rock, right? I didn't add this. I didn't write it. This is someone from the 1670s, right? So we're going to go back to a video that I shared before, and we're going to talk about some other places in Ethiopia, Lalibela, stuff like that, right? So let's look at this first, and we're going to visit some other places as well. So you can see the promised land, and you can get a view of different scriptures and events, and we're going to talk about some stuff about how they rename places, and if you use some common sense, it don't make sense of what they did unless you know how they do stuff, right? Anyway, I digress, but we're going to look at this. So this is the Temple Mount, right? All right. So I want to pause it right there. Right. This is where one of the churches is. Right. And on the Temple Mount, you have several churches on the Temple Mount. Now, in my book, I tell you why they call them churches. Right. Everything is a church. Right. Everything is a church. And the reason why everything is a church is because they redefined things, just like they redefined the land, redefined the rivers, things like that. They redefine things. Now, in my book, I make my point of what the letter of Erethias says that describes the Temple Mount and where the Temple Mount stood. And I make the case based upon the letter of Erethias that this area right here, where these churches are in Lalibela, matches the description perfectly. It matches the description perfectly, right? So if you want the details of why I believe Lalibela is the Temple Mount, this is part of Jerusalem. I believe Jerusalem was massive, right? I believe Jerusalem, because King Solomon, he was the king of an empire, right? And one of my previous videos, I talked about the Philistines and where I think the Philistines were. So from what I believed happened, it's just my opinion from my research, part of Northern Africa and Northeast Africa, all the way to Assab, Eritrea, was controlled by the Philistines. And the Philistines was another opposing empire. And that Israel was another empire, which was in sub-Saharan Africa, all the way from the Niger River, all the way to the Wadi of Egypt, which is the Nile, right? Which is the territory that Solomon and King David ruled over. Now, according to the scriptures, David took over Gaza from the Philistines. Now, from my research, I believe that Gaza is in what we call Assab today, right? Because it used to be called Gaza. And it used to be called Bar Gaza. I cover that in my book as well, right? So in my research, I have no doubt this is the Temple Mount, okay? Make note, Yakoba has said this is the Temple Mount, right? Because you know what's going to happen. People going to come behind me, and they're going to act like I never said anything, and they're going to act like it's a new revelation from them. But that's cool. I'm good with that. I just want y'all to know, okay? That's your home, family. That's Jerusalem. That's the Temple Mount. That's surrounded by mountains. It fits everything. You read the letter of Erethias, it fits everything. You got to read my book and see what I'm talking about, right? All right. So we're going to continue on. Because remember, let me go back here just so we know what we're dealing with. Right? Its temples and palaces, especially those of Solomon, were the fairest and greatest and the most magnificent, which ever I beheld. Its gates and its walls. What? Let's take note of this. Its gates and its walls, its towers. We're going to talk about the towers, right? Its towers, its ditches, what? Cut out of the rock. That's something we know about Ethiopia, something we know about Lalibela, right? Cut out of the rock, okay? So we're going to look at this particular place called Dagmoi or Dagmui. I don't know if I'm pronouncing that correctly, right? But we're going to look at Dagmui, and basically that just means second, right? And this is what they call the Amberger complex. in Lalibela. Now, I'm showing this for a reason. Okay, so let me get it up there. All right, so this is one of the other quote unquote churches. If you notice in Ethiopia, right, there's so many churches. Why? You got so many, people who want to go to these churches and worship the Most High in these churches. What's the purpose of these churches? Or were these churches redefined, or were they repurposed? Because remember, right? Remember, it's gates, it's walls, its ditches, its towers were what? Cut out of the rock. Okay.
How many is it? How many is it? 3, 4.
Okay, I don't need to show the whole thing for you to understand. And I'm going to show this just one more time before I continue. Right? That is gates, it's walls, it's towers, it's ditches cut out of the rock. This is according to Richard Blome, right? All right, so I didn't say it, he said it, right? So we saw that particular supposed church called Ambager, I guess is how you pronounce it, Ambager, right? And we all already know about the other churches that are cut out of the rock, right? So I want to share this with you so you could get a understanding of what they have done and how they have redefined things. But yet, if you take the glasses off, right? If you take the glasses off, you can see for yourself that, these structures have been around a long time, right? And the fact that this particular guy says Jerusalem walls, its gates, its ditches, and everything was cut out of the rock. That's what he said, that Jerusalem was cut out of the rock, right? And that's what we're seeing. So therefore, this time frame that they give us of Lalibela being built by King Lalibela, which makes no sense, which I cover in my book, right? It makes no sense that King Lalibela built all this place to be a second Jerusalem, a fake Jerusalem, because for some reason the real Jerusalem was too far away, but yet it's over across the Red Sea, or what they call the Red Sea. But anyway, let's continue. So here I want you to picture something in your mind of how we can think about the topography when we read scripture, right? So this is 2 Chronicles 20, verse 20 to 24. And they rose early in the morning and went forth into the wilderness of Tekoa, right? So this is the wilderness of Tekoa. What I'm going to show you could be the wilderness of Tekoa. I don't know, but I'm just trying to make a point, right? And as they went forth, Jehoshaphat stood and said, "Hear me, O Judah, and ye inhabitants of Jerusalem. Believe in Yahuwah your Elohim, so shall ye be established. Believe his prophets, so shall ye prosper." And when he had consulted with the people, he appointed singers unto Yahuwah, and that should praise the beauty of holiness as they went out before the army, and to say, "Praise Yahuwah, for his mercy endureth forever." And when they began to sing and to praise, Yahuwah set ambushes against the children of Ammon, Moab, and Mount Seir, which were come against Judah, and they were smitten. For the children of Ammon and Moab stood up against the inhabitants of Mount Seir, utterly to slay and destroy them. And when they had made an end of the inhabitants of Seir, everyone helped to destroy another. And when Judah came towards the watchtower, keep note of that. When Judah came towards when they approached the watchtower in what? The wilderness, they looked unto the multitude, and behold, they were all dead. Dead bodies falling to the earth, and none escaped. All right. So my point here in this particular scripture, thinking about what's happening here, there's this huge valley. And in this valley, you got Ammon, Moab, right? Esau, the Edomites, Mount Seir, coming against it, the Israelites. And what happens? Judah and them were coming towards the watchtower. It's a lookout, right? To see the vast numbers of armies that's coming against Israel. All right. So keep that picture in your mind, right? Because I want to show you something. And I want to show you how they redefine things, right? How they redefine things. So let's look at this. So this is the chapel in the sky.
The Tigray region in northern Ethiopia is known for its assembly of rock-hewn churches. Sculpted out of sandstone, the most wondrous of these is a Buna.
Okay, I'm going to pause right here. This is my opinion. Because they call everything a church, right? But really, they put churches in biblically relevant places. This is a watchtower. Okay, that's what this is. And this is when they saw all of the armies of Moab and Ammon and all of them coming against the Israelites.
Yamataga. There's only one way up. You have to climb this cliff face. Welcome to the world's most perilous church.
Now, does it make any sense that they would make this a church? Come on now, really? For what? Right? It's a watchtower. Everything that has a biblical significance, they redefined it as a church. That's my opinion. They redefined it as a church.
Established in the 5th century, the church is named after its founder and builder, Father Yamata. Perched 650 feet above a steep cliff, some say he chose its location to be closer to heavenly spirits. Others argue it was a strategic move to avoid his enemies. Either way, the church's location, ceiling frescoes, and precious goatskin Bible have attracted worshipers for centuries.
All right, so they redefined these places to be called churches. Everything that has a biblical significance. I mean, there are so many churches in Ethiopia, it boggles the mind, right? It makes no sense. It makes no sense. There's so many churches in Ethiopia, it boggles the mind, right? So we're going to look at another area, which I believe was a potential lookout point or watchtower as well. And this is called the Debre. Debre means mountain. Damo monastery. Like I say, they always repurpose things, right? So let's look at this. Now, this is another view where you can see 2 Chronicles 20 happening as well as a lookout point or a watchtower, right? It ain't no church. It's not a church. It don't make no sense. All of these churches high up in the mountain, little holes cut out in the walls, right? They just repurposed it, right? These were watchtowers. Somebody said the audio is gone. Do y'all hear me or not? Give me a one if y'all hear me, if I'm okay. All right. Okay. All right, cool.
Ça, je veux bien le faire aussi, dans ce sens-là, mais dans l'autre sens. Et dans l'autre sens, il tire ou pas? Bah, il paraît qu'il tire quand on n'arrive pas à le faire tout seul. Ah bon?
Take it balance. Balance it up.
Il y a combien de morts par an? So I gotta share this. I agree with according to, if that's going to church, I ain't never going. I agree. But look, common sense question, family. Common sense. Let's use common sense. Does it make sense that this is a church? Does it make sense that you got to climb up these ropes to get up there? Or is this a watchtower to look out for your enemies, to secure the borders of Israel, what we call Israel, right? That's a whole different thing in and of itself. If you don't know my point of view, get my book. All right. So I thought that was very interesting personally. All right. So I'm going to share some more stuff. Because remember, it's walls, it's gates, it's ditches, it's towers were carved out of the rock, right? Carved out of rock. Is that not what we're seeing? I'm like, come on, I ain't no other place fit. All right. This is another church carved out of rock. Does that make sense? All these churches? Come on now. Really? Mama ain't raised no fools, you know. Look at that. Carved out of rock. Carved out of the rock. So, if you have the truth, sooner or later, everything is going to be validated, and everything I have been teaching is being validated. Now, what I'm about to show next is another particular thing I covered in my book, right? If you haven't read my book, you're missing out, okay? I mean, yeah, I'm plugging my book, but you really do need to read it, right? All right. If you want to understand why this is the land, there's no doubt it's the land. I told y'all I'm 100 plus 50,000% sure this is the real Jerusalem. This is the true promised land. Look, ain't nobody can compete. They can't compare, right? I mean, the evidence is overwhelming, right? All right, so let's look at this particular scripture next. John 11, 38, 44. I covered this in my book. Yeshua, once more deeply moved, came to the tomb. What did Yeshua do? He came to a tomb. Where was the tomb, family? It was a cave with a stone laid across the entrance. Take away the stone, he said. Now, I'm not going to read the whole thing. Y'all know the scripture, right? Basically, I want you to understand that he was buried in a cave, which is another tradition and something that they do in Ethiopia, right? So let me show you this particular video here. We're going to look through a little bit of it. Can we say an overabundance of churches, family? Can we say that? An overabundance of churches? An overabundance of churches, family? Come on now. Obviously, this is a repurposed area, right? It's repurposed. Okay, so I'm going to skip ahead a little bit. I wanted y'all to see some of this territory, right? All right, so I'm going to show y'all something else, which is in reference to what I read in John about Lazarus. Now, do y'all see those stones in those caves? Right? Now, remember, according to the scriptures, they had to roll away the stone from in front of Lazarus' cave, just like when the Messiah was buried in a cave, they had to roll away the stone, right? Y'all remember that, right? Okay, just pay attention. Y'all see what's in the caves? Right? Where was Lazarus? Buried in the cave. Right? Where these people buried in the cave? What they got? They got rocks covering the cave. I'm just saying. I'm like, okay. Y'all see the rocks in front of the cave? Can you see a bigger rock, a round rock or something bigger that covered the cave as opposed to these broken rocks? I'm just saying. Oh my goodness. What do we have here, family? Another church. Another church. Could that have been a military station? Could that have been a military checkpoint or something? I don't know. I'm just asking. I'm like, Another church? No, it's obvious what they've done. They've taken the holy sites, and any place that was a holy site where the Israelites were, what happened in the Bible, they made it a church, obviously, right? What did Bloom say? The gates, the towers, the ditches. Oh yeah, I ain't even cover the ditches. You want to watch the ditches or the cisterns? Go get my book. I cover that. I cover it all. Right? It fits everything. It fits literally everything. I cover stuff that, I'm not even going to talk about today. It fits everything. Look, here's the bottom line. In my opinion, at least, there's no doubt. I mean, it's not even worth arguing, right? I mean, it's obvious, right? This is Jerusalem. This is the true Jerusalem. It's not the second Jerusalem. It's not a fake Jerusalem. This is the real Jerusalem. It's not Utah. Utah's not Jerusalem. Come on. Oh, my goodness. Can you believe some people believe Utah, Jerusalem? Anyway, I digress. So now you can have a reference point of where true Jerusalem is located. And, you can picture in your mind where all of these biblical events took place, these wars, 70 AD, overthrow, and all these things, right? And all of these so-called churches were not churches, okay? They were not churches, all right? Here's another church built into the wall. Remember, Bloom said that they're carved out of rock. Now, this place is called Debre Zion. Now, they say that this place was built by Abuna Abraham. He probably the one that repurposed it, right? Way too many churches, right? Don't make any sense, right? I believe some of these locations could have been military outposts, for the our ancestors and their armies, This is Abuna Yamada Gu, which is, another lookout point or watchtower, right? Everything's a church. Do you really believe all these places are churches high up in the mountains and all this foolishness? Let's use some common sense, right? Rock-hewn churches. Isaiah 51:1. Listen to me, you who pursue righteousness and who seek Yahuwah. Look to the rock from which you were cut, and to the quarry from which you were hewn. Now, we know this is in direct reference to the true rock, right? Because Messiah is the true rock. But Jerusalem is cut out of a rock. Once again. its gates, its walls, its towers, its ditches cut out of the rock. Look to the rock from which you were hewn, you were cut, and to the quarry from which you were hewn. This is in reference to the Messiah, but Jerusalem is the people. The people come from the Messiah. Jerusalem is also a land, a city, a place where Yahuwah dwells, which is carved out of the rock. It's carved out of rock. Second Kings 17:29. Nevertheless, each national group made its own gods in the several towns where they settled, and set them up in the shrines the people of Samaria had made at the high places. So the people of Samaria made these idols or whatever, these shrines in the high places. Now, the Samaritans, they claim descent from the northern tribes of Israel, right? Specifically Ephraim and Manasseh and possibly Levi. Their name is linked to Samaria, the capital of the northern kingdom of Israel. They believe they are the true keepers of Torah, right? Once again, somebody trying to take our heritage, our identity, right? Worshiping Yahuwah alone and reject the idea that the Yahudim of the southern kingdom were the sole heirs of the covenant. So they rejected that, we were the sole heirs of the covenant. But, hey, I mean, it was made with Israel. Judah is the one who has the rod, right? The staff of rulership. Okay. So why am I bringing up Samaria, right? Samaria, right? Samaria, Afar. This is the capital of the Afar region in Ethiopia. It is a town on the Awash-Asab highway in northeast Ethiopia, having been planned and built to replace Aseta. Now, there's a whole bunch of things and places, mountains that I cover in my book that's biblically named, right? I'm like, just way too many, right? It's just look, everybody knows but us, right? Everybody knows. Them white boys that were climbing those mountains, they know that's Jerusalem. That's why they're there. Don't get it twisted, right? They got us thinking that it's Namibia. They got us thinking it's South Africa. They got us thinking it's by the Orange River. They got us thinking it's in Kenya, but no evidence, no proof, no historical connection, no nothing, right? Nothing lines up with the description, but yet I'm showing you places that identify directly, right, with what we see in scripture. Now, this is a far Samaria, right? But before I do that, I wanted to show this before I go show that. All right. So this is the root word Samar for Samaritans, Samar, right? It means to keep, have charge of, to keep guard, to watch. So this is the root word for the Samaritan. Now they got, the modern Hebrew, which is shomer, right? That obviously sounds like Yiddish brew, right? Shomer. But when you go to the root of the root, it's Samar, right? Which ties back to Samaria, Samar. Okay, it ain't coincidence. There's a Nazareth there. There's a Mount of Olives there. There's so many places. I'm like, come on now, really? But let's look at this. This is Samaria. So you could picture in your mind the potential places where a lot of these events took place.
هذا قتل لباحة هذا كيف طلع حتى هذا المقعد سمرة علمي كسكر حنا سنجيلي قبل سمرة يواري عبر بدين بعد قتل لباحة هذا كيف طلع حتى هذا المقعد سمرة علمي كسكر حينا سنبلي بدل سمراي واري عبر بدي يا كل نول تبدو وكاسمة اللي جيتو يا كل نول تبدو وكاسمة اللي جيتو ولسويكو هابنا تامت كي على أهل الله
So, family, that's where I think Samaria is. I wanted to show y'all these things because common sense will tell you that those churches up in the mountains up high that they got to climb up ropes to get to obviously were not churches. Come on, common sense. Common sense. Those were the towers that we see in the scriptures. Those are the towers we saw in the 2nd Chronicles and other places. Overlooking this vast territory and land. That's what towers are. Towers are super high to overlook so you can have a watch out to warn when the enemy coming before they get here. As I stated, according to Bloom, its gates, its walls, its towers, its ditches are cut out of the rock. Is this not the place that everything is cut out of the rock? Is not what we call modern Ethiopia, what we call Tigray, what we call, Northeast Africa. All these places not cut out of the rock. So not only do we have Richard Blom's description of Jerusalem as being cut out of the rock, we have the scripture in Isaiah 51, verse 1, from the rock that you were hewn, the Most High telling us that Jerusalem is cut out of a rock. Because there's symbolism in the real Jerusalem, which is the true fulfillment of Jerusalem, is the people, which is why sometimes people say, well, I thought Jerusalem was going to be trodden down of the Gentiles till the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. Well, you can look at that two ways. One, it is being occupied by Gentiles. There are Gentiles occupying it. Israelites not in there running things. But at the same time, if you look at that particular scripture in Luke, it's talking about the judgment on Israelites. So if you were to take that particular scripture and keep it in context, it is the Israelites who are oppressed or trodden down until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. It is you descendants of slaves, who's trodden down of the Gentiles until the time of the Gentiles be fulfilled. They want you to believe this is a second Jerusalem. No, this is the real Jerusalem. It literally fits everything. There is literally nothing that it does not fit. I am serious. I spent that much time, that much research looking into it. There's literally nothing that it does not fit. It literally fits everything. And if you were to use common sense, because I know common sense ain't common, that dirt in the Middle East has a whole bunch of problems with it, which I cover in my book. The Congo is part of Israelite territory, but it is not part of Jerusalem. West Africa is part of Israelite territory, but it's not part of Jerusalem. You might as well call it Israel, right? Because it's where the people are. I cover that in my book. I told y'all I didn't drop the mic 100 times. I'm going to drop it again. To me, at this point, if you think any other place is Jerusalem, you're just deceived. You're just deceived. I mean, literally, it fits every description, every attribute, everything. Even the historical relationship between the Israelites and the surrounding cultures, it fits everything. The Temple Mount, it fits everything. You read my book, you'll see what I say about how it fits everything that the letter of Eritrea says. It fits everything. When I say everything, I'm saying everything. That's why I say I have no doubt. And see, our people who don't take the time to do the research, right? Or they have another agenda. They're going to say it's Namibia. They're going to say it's South Africa. I'm not saying that those places are not Israelite territories, because yes, they were. They were under our control. As I believe, just my opinion, all of sub-Saharan Africa was ours. Parts of North Africa, especially from Libya, the Fezzan, all the way over to what we call Eritrea, was controlled by the Philistines. That's, from my research, that's what I see. And our grandparent, David, took over Gaza from the Philistines. I don't think at this point there's any other viable candidate for Jerusalem. I ain't gonna lie. I'm sorry. Well, Jacoba, you think you're right about everything. I'm just saying I did the research. That's all I'm saying. I just did the research. If you do the research being unbiased, if you're unbiased, you will come to the same conclusion. I mean, that's how much it fits. I mean, literally, take all of the scriptures, compare it to Ethiopia. I'm sorry, it's just too much, and it's too much to be coincidence. But I'm gonna tell you this: those people who hate the truth, those people who hate Teo Ministries, they're gonna always say it's not the place, right? Because they're going to be exposed for the liars that they are. And they're going to be exposed for following false prophets and false teachers, as which was warned in the last days would happen. Which is why a lot of people like to gaslight you and make you think stuff like, when I heard Utah, I literally was about to drop my my cup. I mean, I didn't even know that was a thing. Did y'all know that was a thing? Give me one if you knew that people were saying Utah was Jerusalem. Some of y'all probably knew. I didn't know. I almost had a fit. I'm like, what? Stop gaslighting me. But people like to gaslight. I ain't gonna lie. They like to gaslight you. I'm like, but I always say, mama ain't raised no fools. You know that, right? Mama ain't raised no fools. Don't come over here with that. Jacoba ain't biting that one. Right? I agree, weirdos. I agree, weirdo. Well, fam, that's all I got. I want to share that with you because in these days, I think it's good to understand where the land is. I think it's good to be able to picture in your mind where some of these events, biblical events, took place. You know, because you all are like me, I'm sure. You know, it never fit the Middle East. You know, when you always try to view and picture the biblical wars and the fights and the fight for territories and all this stuff, and you know, it never worked. It never worked. Couldn't work. And you know, but it's sort of like that Eddie Murphy joke where Eddie Murphy was his wife or his girlfriend called him cheating. Y'all know that joke, right? And She said, Eddie, I saw you cheating, Eddie. What you saw? Well, me? And I'm paraphrasing just my way, right? It wasn't me. Yes, it was you, Eddie. I saw you. It wasn't me. It was you, Eddie. I saw you. It wasn't me. But it was you, Eddie. I saw you. I'm telling you it wasn't me. Well, maybe it wasn't you. That's how they do, right? They gaslight you. Well, maybe it wasn't you, right? I don't fall for that one. You know what I'm saying? I don't fall for that one. But anyway, fam, that's all I got. If y'all want to support this ministry, you can. You can become a patron. You can also give Cash App, $TOTW7101. You can also go to the donations tab and see other options to give. I'm going to tell you this, ain't nobody giving you what I give you over here. Ain't nobody teaching like we teach over here. We straight up researchers. We straight up seek the Most High's will. We straight up a truth ministry, and we believe that, right? And you ain't getting that nowhere else. I'm sorry. You might think you are, but it is what it is. I ain't patting myself on the back. I'm just being truthful, right? So love y'all, family. And, don't forget to support this ministry, and also, my book and Mr. Teyu's book, and Peace and Blessings Israel. Your captivity is ending.
What if the truth was never lost, only buried? For centuries, historians, scholars, and even colonial records have confirmed what many tried to silence. The original Israelites were a black people scattered across continents, but never erased. Their skin was dark, their customs ancient, and their covenant with Yah eternal. This journey uncovers how the Spanish and Portuguese Jews, described as dark-skinned, Semitic, shared one bloodline. Chased by the Inquisition, many fled to Portugal, then beyond, preserving their heritage across borders. But the story doesn't end in Iberia. Across from West Africa, black Jews built synagogues, kept Torah, and passed down the laws of Moses. The Limba in southern Africa, the Igbo in Nigeria, the Beta Israel in Ethiopia, tribes across the continent boldly declared, "We are the children of Israel." These aren't isolated claims. These are voices rising from the dust, connected by oral histories, Torah traditions, and the unbroken rhythm of their identity. No such legacy exists among European Jews. No centuries of tribal witness, no matching traditions, no trace of ancient covenant keeping. Maps, art, and archaeology tell the same story. The Israelites were scattered, enslaved, and displaced, but never lost. The world always knew who they were. Their presence was visible, their customs alive, their story intact. This book doesn't speculate. It confirms the Israelites were black, bound by blood, culture, and covenant to the Most High. This is not just history, it's restoration. The truth was never destroyed, only buried beneath centuries of deception. Get your copy of They Always Knew We Were Israelites today, available now on Amazon.com.